I am not enough. That's the lie that's ruining a lot of careers. And behind that is the second guessing, the hesitation on opportunities that would normally be just jumped on. It's like someone is feeling like they're going to be found out, like they really shouldn't be there because they're not qualified, they're not capable, they're not smart enough. But I have to remind you, that is really a lie. It's been code that's been implanted from your childhood. And I'd like you to hear some examples here today. I had a beautiful lawyer walk into my office one day for her appointment, and she really dressed the part. She was stunning. She walked in and she sat very professionally in my chair, and she spoke very eloquently. I had a little information from her consultation, so I had that to go on, but she started crying so very deeply. It was the kind of cries that are just coming from the chest and sobbing. And she said, how can I not be so successful? How can I not be what I need to be here? I've got the education. As you see, I play the role. I know what to say, but when I get into a courtroom, I lose, and I always lose, and I'm in a family business, and they're talking about letting me go. And she said, how embarrassing. What is wrong with me? Those are the questions and statements that came out of her mouth. This code, this lie was implanted in childhood way before anyone could have a conscious understanding of what they were doing as it was being implanted. It was almost implied that she'd become part of the practice. She did not really choose to. She knew she was supposed to, and she didn't want to let the family down. It was a very close-knit family, and just everybody turned into a lawyer. They went to the same school. They got almost the same grades, and they did some beautiful work to help people. They were great trial attorneys. And she had been in the practice for a few years and did her due diligence, and she couldn't pull it off. And so we did some hypnotherapy, which basically just means focused concentration. Anything that someone's saying hypnotherapy about, the bottom line is this focused concentration. How you get there, whether it be heightened or whether it be relaxed, someplace in between. There's a ton of different modalities that can cause a hypnotic kind of result. And in this case, we used a more traditional hypnotherapy with her, with relaxation and moving forth. But we had to find out what the goals were with this, because she was still bawling. She didn't believe she was worth much of anything. She couldn't perform like her brothers. She couldn't pull it off. Her dad was getting upset and confused and just didn't know what to do. It was like they were just carrying her, and she couldn't stand that. And she also did not want to be in a place where her brothers could tease her. They weren't the most empathetic and understanding of siblings. But with this, take the siblings out, take the dad being disappointed out. We still have a very trained, past the bar lawyer that can't seem to do what she was trained to do. So with this, she's got great speaking ability. That's not the issue. She performed well in courtrooms, but somehow there was always some kind of self-sabotage. We went through a lot of different situations where it was easy for me to see, as being a third-party outsider, that she was missing something very large that she, with all the beautiful analytic thinking that she could pull off, she could have seen it. What we ended up uncovering with the trance work, which is focused concentration, you don't have to be in a trance. With her, it was, she needed to relax. She needed to get those tears out and settle. What we found out was that she was always picked on by those brothers, and that she was held down and tickled till she couldn't stand it anymore. And I know that sounds very non-intrusive, but it was actually an abusive situation. So with this, she knew that the brothers had proven over all these years that they had controls over her. And they just had a personality in which they really did not want to let go of the relentless harassment. Having said that, we have one issue with that. We also had the issue of she was always being told no and being yelled at by her father. No, that's not the way you do that. No, you do it this way. No, you have to come over here and do it the way I said. No, the world doesn't like it like that. No, our practice can't handle that. No, no, no. And this was from childhood up. And a lot was expected of her. She was the only girl, and she had extra chores that the boys didn't do in different ways. So there was also a lot of inequality going on. And keep in mind that she knew all of this, had no clue that it was really challenging her down to her very soul, because she didn't even know she wanted to be a lawyer. She knew she didn't want to be harassed by her brothers, and she knew she was disappointing her dad constantly. This was a situation where we went to work. And when we did, we looked at the different things that made her actually believe it. Because there's many a girl in an all-boy household who turns out very tough and ends up being so successful, she puts them all to shame, all the boys. So it's not just the dynamics of the sibling, okay? That would be an obvious guess. It could be, it is possibly in this situation, but we couldn't guarantee that was the only reason why she was having these issues. She didn't feel like herself. That's what she kept saying. I didn't get to feel like myself. And she kept putting it in the past. She didn't get to. And I said, but what about now? Do you feel like yourself? She didn't even know what that was. She didn't know, and she doesn't know who she is, how she feels. She doesn't even know how to fit in the world. And these are all very important things to remind her that can be erased, put in different frames, and allow her to thrive. Growing up in a household where she's being picked on, told no, that carried right into courtroom. So she didn't win court cases because she was always being told no and she was wrong. That carried right in. The father went, of course you're not going to do well. The brothers, ha, 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 laughed. So she's living out the childhood trauma in that relaxed hypnotic state where the brain is open in a way that as you're in that state, the right intentions go in very smoothly. So with her, the right intentions were something that we had to get out of her. What did she really believe about herself? What does she want to believe about herself? And let's give her there, okay? So the negative that was there was very big. It was a large pile. What she wanted was something that she had not even really thought of, because she had never thought she'd get past the unconsciousness of this. So the unconscious was almost strangling the conscious movement in the world. So with this, we got to a point where she didn't want to be a lawyer, but if she is a lawyer, she didn't want to be in that law firm. That was astounding, and she came to that in a trance. She let her subconscious bring that to the surface. Because law school is a lot of time, energy, and money. Did she want to throw that away? No, she didn't really want to throw that away. But she didn't want to be in the situation where she was going to be harassed by family members. And as silly as that sounds, she opened her own practice. She moved into a different town, and she did not rely on their reputation. She started sitting up a little taller. She started believing the things that we helped install, because the old code was not working well. The old code was wrong. The old code was not anything about who she was and who she wanted to be. The new code was something that you would assume a lawyer would be. Someone confident, someone comfortable, someone very authoritative, not someone who would hide in the chair, someone who could pull together an argument and win. And she began proving it to herself that without the heavy chains from her family, she got to be more of herself. And that allowed more and more of herself. So in all kinds of ways, she got to explore the newness of her. And it was always there, it was always trapped in there, and it was blocked by the code that the family had given that was really inappropriate for her. But that's all she knew. And now she's free, very successful, and ended up marrying a really nice man, having a wonderful family and her practice. And she didn't even know she wanted a family originally, but when she started to discover who she was, she decided that she wanted 3 kids, and they were going to be raised very differently than she was. So anytime you've got anything that's bothering you, where you feel like you're stuck, where you feel like you're repeating patterns, where you feel you can't get someplace, there's a code someplace. And that code can be gotten to by focused concentration, which could be traditional hypnotherapy or meditation, a walk. My husband's really good at using moving meditation. And what he does is he gets on his bike and he rides for about half an hour every day. And he comes back beautifully relaxed and focused with all kinds of insights that he would not have otherwise gotten if he was at home. So you can do Pilates and get insights. You can get insights anywhere, but if you haven't done any kind of research on this or you haven't done any meditating, you probably want to start with the relaxing kind first, at least to try. 20 minutes twice a day is usually going to give a lot of relief, a lot of focus, a lot of information if you know and want to use it that way. There's also, like I said, the moving meditation. And for some people, that's the only way. You can't get anybody to sit still in a chair for more than 2 minutes. They're not going to be good at relaxing and coming up with information from their subconscious. So I encourage each and every person to work highly on their skills, because it's something that you want to fall back on. When tragedy or trauma hits, you want to know what to do with it. But more importantly, the tragedy or trauma that's been stored within your being needs to be let go, released, said goodbye to. And if you could meet this woman today, you would see a very happy, relaxed person who's really enjoying her life. And that's where we all want to be. Happy, healthy, and whole. If you like anything in this video, please take the moment and do the subscribe and possibly share if you know anyone who would have a different perspective on their life or something within them if they happen to get this information. There's also a QR code, and you can definitely reach out to talk to me personally. I do take private sessions for any and all things health, mind, body, and spirit. And that just means we can work with anything you have trouble with. So reach out if you need to, and thank you for sharing this time with me.